carefully to the sound of the lonely days, like a heartbeat drives you mad, and the stillness of remembering what you had, oh, and what you lost, and what you had, oh, and what you lost.
Hello, viewers. It's your half-assed reporter, James Kalm, and we are in Chelsea on a Thursday evening. We're gonna try to get some pictures of at least one exhibition in. Stay tuned. Came in here on Thursday evening at an opening, and I'll probably splice in a little bit of this, but I ran out of time, so I thought we'd come back and take a little more detailed viewing of the show. Okay, so there's probably about 15 or 20 paintings in here, so we may not get to all of them. This is Naiad, 1947, oil on found linen, and I believe this may be the earliest piece in the show. It's a little gem. I thought this would be interesting, at least it is for me, because Dorothea Tanning could be called, well, the reason that the New York School became the New York School. She's kind of like the Helen of Troy of the New York School. This is Dumont's, 2 words, 1963, oil on canvas, 51 1/4 by 38 1/4. And well, the reason I say that is that the whole post-World War II New York City art world basically was kicked off by Peggy Guggenheim. And Peggy Guggenheim opened Art of the Century Gallery on 57th Street, I believe, 1942. And at that point, she was married to Max Ernst and was a champion of the Surrealists and some of the Dadaists. So Peggy Guggenheim was in France meeting all the Surrealists and the Dadaists and the trendy avant-garde, not only the painters but the literary people as well. And she happened to meet and fall in love with Max Ernst, who at that point was André Breton's favorite Surrealist. This is titled To Climb a Ladder, 1987. It's oil on canvas, 47 by 41. I was looking at this the other day and I was thinking it was almost a little over-varnished. It's titled Pounding Strong. It's It's a large painting, 82 by 80. So, anyway, Peggy Guggenheim gets to New York. She's married to Max Ernst. She opens her gallery on 52nd or 57th Street. Jimmy Ernst, Max's son, was her best boy, who was the guy at the gallery that was helping to run things and keep track of things. And at some point, they decided they were going to do an exhibition featuring women artists. And I think a lot of it was kind of like women surrealists. Okay, this is Portrait de family portrait, 1977, oil on canvas, 57 by 45. See, one of the things that I enjoy about Dorothea's work is that she is actually just very classically, says she was self-taught mostly, but she does have a very classic approach to the figures. And even though she tries to kind of introduce a abstract or a surreal element into this, it always, you can see that she liked her figure drawing part of it. Anyway, so they're going to have a show of female artists at the gallery. I think they ended up having about 20 or 24 artists in the show. For Gustave Lador, 1974. Well, one of the people who was helping her curate the show, I believe, was Howard Putzel, someone that she'd been working with in France when she was on her buying spree. It's kind of a fun piece. Women artist, nude standing, 1985 to 87. And Howard had been scouring the countryside looking at painters in New York. I think he also was associated with Jackson Pollock and introduced Jackson Pollock to Peggy and some other people. Anyway, he talked Max Ernst into going by Dorothea's studio and seeing the work. And, well, Max was smitten. I guess he had a reputation as quite the ladies' man. He was a very handsome guy, very charming. It's titled Useless, 1969. Oil on canvas, 35 by 45. Anyway, so Max is having an affair with Dorothea, and Peggy finds out. She doesn't like it. She ends up dumping not only Max, but Jimmy Ernst. Basically told her entire salon of surrealists that she'd been supporting and providing for to go take a hike. She brought in Howard Putzel as her assistant at the gallery, and Howard had already kind of established connections with a lot of the California artists, Pollock, Rothko, Clifford Still, some other New Yorkers, and basically got Peggy to shift the direction of her gallery and start showing Americans. The Americans all happen to be doing something that they ended up calling abstract expressionism, and as they say, the rest is history. It's called Environs de Paris and Vicinity. It's 1962. This is 100 by 80. And I believe that Dorothea and Max stayed in New York for a few years, and then they left and went and, I guess, established a studio and house out in New Mexico. And I think they stayed out there for a lot of time, and I guess eventually went back to France. I think Max died in maybe the late 70s. Dorothea kept painting, and like a lot of the women artists that are being rediscovered these days, I think she lived to be 102, something like that. It's titled Maverick, 1969. It's titled Fresh Air Philosophy. Okay, we like that. And again, there's always this connotation of the figure. That's what are the figures doing? One of this is a reference to Lunch on the Grass. Is that the title of it? The famous Monet painting. 52 by 65. Now, I recall seeing Dorothea's work at a gallery on the Upper East Side back in the early 80s. So maybe it was Herschel and Adler, somebody like that. And even then she was highly esteemed, but I don't think she was well known. It's titled Far From. So I think we've got works here that are from the mid-40s until, I don't know, what, maybe the 90s? The other thing that I was going to say is that a lot of this work kind of relates to what somebody like Cicely Brown is doing. Kind of taking the figures, breaking them up, recomposing them, but also always maintaining that sense of the figure. This is a big piece. On Avalon. It's 1987, oil on canvas, 77.5 by 130. Well, I've done a little online research on Dorothea. And as I said, she's one of these artists that had an extremely long life. But I'm looking at a painting like this and thinking, gosh, she must have been maybe in her mid-70s when she was painting this, and yeah, something like that takes a lot of energy. Again, we've got our figures. If I've got time, we're going to try to run across the road and take a look at an exhibition of, I think they're calling it After 9th Street. Female abstract artists. And so Dorothea would be like the great lead into that in a certain way. So this is kind of nice. So we've got our kind of brushy figures, and then we've got these giant flowers. And I was thinking this relates to Joan Mitchell a little bit. the ill-forgotten. Okay, so we've got some kind of figurative thing happening here. It's like the top of somebody's head or something. You know, when she wanted to render a face or a hand or a figure, she could certainly do a very good job. And then there are these kind of broken up, floating things. Make me think of a Tanguy painting. He was a very influential surrealist. Maybe Pavel Chedichel. Nota Capito, 1960, 32 by 39. Well, whenever I see a show like this where they're kind of reassessing history, reevaluating, I have to think that there's some kind of motivation here. And I don't know how prolific Dorothea was. But I do know that people are taking a second look at a lot of the women artists from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, especially the Americans, and trying to give a more honest appraisal of the works. We're going to wrap up this end of our tour looking at this piece. This is kind of an odd piece. It's titled Door 84, 1984. Oil on canvas with found door. This is 63 3/4 by 104. Okay, so Dorothea's just come out and she's got the straight figures. They're not kind of dissolving into the background or anything, and they're very active. And I'm thinking, okay, so 1984 was kind of the height of the neo-expressionism. You had a whole bunch of people, you know, the Germans, the Italians, Cucchi Clementi. You had Mittendorf, Lupertz, Baselitz, all painting figuratively. And so this door is nice. I like that she put in these little streaks on there as if this figure's dirty feet got up there and marked the door. I also think Dorothy's got a pretty good color sense. Got a little crackle in there. James Kalm reporting on Dorothea Tanning. Doesn't the paint say it all? Here at Kasmin. Okay, now we're going to walk across the street and around the corner to what used to be the Paul Kasmin Gallery. We're going to run in here to Hunter and Dunbar projects. I haven't been here before, and see if we can get some pictures of Street and beyond. 70 years of women in abstraction. One, the Gestural. So this is by Rita Ackerman. It's titled Mama Bowtie 2020, Oil and China Marker on Canvas. Gosh, I actually came in here and thought this was a Grace Hardigan. It was a good Grace Hardigan. So Rita Ackerman was born 1968, so Grace was already doing her teaching thing down in Baltimore, I think, at that point. And it is fitting that it's hanging next to the Hardigan. This is actually 3 years before Rita was born. Skin Deep, 1965. And of course, so they're calling this 9th Street and Beyond, 7 Years of Women in Abstraction. And that's a reference to the 9th Street show. That was considered the beginning of the New York school. There was a group of artists that had formed a club downtown called The Club. People like William de Kooning, Milton Resnick, and some other people were members of that. And I guess initially they didn't want to allow any women into the club. And that worked for about 3 weeks, and then they ran out of money, and they said, we've got to get somebody in here that's got something going. And so they decided they're going to let women into the club. Helen Frankenthaler, Red Heat, 1982, acrylic on canvas. And there was a great book called 9th Street Women that came out a couple of years ago. Very interesting read. I would recommend it. I think Helen was one of I guess there were about 5 or 6 female artists that were featured in that book. I think Helen was one of them. Actually, I like the way that they're pairing the works. One of our favorites, Joan Snyder. Roxy Red Fugue, 2017. Oil acrylic cloth, rosebuds, glitter, and plastic jewels on linen. Well, we've been watching Joan's work for a long time. And she had a great show down in Canada maybe a couple of years ago. I think Joan spends a certain amount of her time in Brooklyn. Patricia Tribe? It's titled Sleeve Variations. Oil on canvas, 80 by 60. Oh, I like this. It's kind of interesting to see how she's painted this. So she's done something. She's primed her canvas with something that closed out the weave. And little sections of color that are just slid on very spontaneously. Kind of makes me think a little bit of the work that Jason Stopa has been doing recently. I also like the way this kind of relates to Arabic calligraphy. And so it's made me think of Shirley Jaffe a little bit. Sabina Moritz, titled Ground, 2020, oil on canvas. 68 by 70 inches. I like the overall quality of this. So Sabina's got a nice fluid touch. Jacqueline Humphreys, Untitled, 2020. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Some kind of dot stencil that she's covered over her initial design with. Kelty Ferris has been doing some things sort of like that. Okay, well, I looked at the clock and I've got 5 minutes before closing time, and this is a big show. We're not going to get to all this stuff. Of course, we know who this is. Joan Mitchell. I was thinking we should do a little test here. We run around, we don't give any titles or names, and we guess who's doing the painting. Cecily Brown, and I was just talking about her when we were over looking at the Dorothea Tanning show. There's a Land of Pure Delight, oil on linen. That's 23 by 31. This is Cornelia Michael West, Untitled, 1957. Well, somebody has come in and sort of taken over Cornelia's estate, and she's been getting a lot of publicity lately, and I would say that she might be one of the most powerful of the 1950s abstract expressionist women painters. And I mean, she's using a lot of the tropes, the poured paint, the scribbled stuff right out of the tube, and the big slashing strokes. But she's got a nice touch, and I especially like the way that she doesn't get prissy. Everything is just kind of urgently thrown down and made it happen. Okay, we got Linda Banglis. That's funny. I was looking through the window as I was leaving last night, and some drunk guy came in here and he was walking on top of this, and one of the local the docents had to run over and grab him and pull him off. Okay, this is a big piece. Torquemada Dyson, Bird and Lava number 4, 2021, acrylic on canvas. It's a 96-inch Tondo. That's a big Tondo. Okay, do we know who this is? Eva Hess, Untitled, 1956, oil on canvas. Well, you don't get a chance to see too many Eva Hess paintings, especially from this period. I just curated a show that closed about 3 weeks ago, and it was dealing with all the artists on the Bowery, and Eva Hess was one of them. Okay, this is another big piece. Mary Weatherford, Fortune Teller, 2013, Flash and Neon on Linen. Okay, well, we've seen Mary's work. I think she might have been in the breakthrough show at the Museum of Modern Art about painting now, but they're painting in the Forever Now, something like that, or one of the big painting shows. I believe she's from California. And Walter Robinson introduced me to her. And I asked her, I said, gosh, where did you get that linen? I used to work with a beautiful heavy linen that we got from Utrecht, but they closed out the loom. Yayoi Kusama, Infinity Nest, OQRET 2005. It's 18 by 15. Okay, we'll see how much we can get of the back room. Okay, so this is all the salon style. And with 5 minutes to go before closing time, I'm not going to get all of it in, so we'll just do a quick kind of running commentary. Brenda Youngblood, Jolly Rancher, 7th, 2021. Mixed media on canvas. Okay, so we've got some buttons in there. Okay, this is a Pat Pasloff painting, untitled 1962. Okay, we've been down and visited the Milton Resnick Pat Pasloff Foundation several times. I think Pat was another very integral member of the downtown set, although I talked to Jeffrey Dorfman, who spends a lot of time at the foundation and was friends of Milton Resnick and Pat. And he said that the reason that Pat wasn't in the 9th Street show is that she had gone back to college. I mean, maybe at Bard someplace, and missed the call. Joan Renaud got a show of, or a program of her work from the Eric Firestone Gallery about maybe a year ago. One of the most creative mosaic artists that I know. Okay, we'll scan over here and see if there's any superstars we should make sure we don't miss. Well, I was going to call this a seascape, but I guess it's just an abstraction. It's called Party. It's 2021 oil and linen, 72 by 76.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
This is a Louise Bourgeois.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
Lynn Drexler.
Thank you. I know that.
Okay, so that's Mercedes Matters.
We just kind of thought like, well, should we do a greatest hits?
She's one of the people that got the New York studio going after Hans Hoffman left.
Makes sense on one level. It's not that
Joan
easy.
Snyder.
It's not that, I mean, there are artists that are greatest hits, but a lot of the works within those artists can.
More Joan Snyder.
That were really good and interesting, that were made contemporaneously with a lot of the stuff that the acknowledged masters were making.
Helen Frankenthaler.
No, thank you for saying so. And it's kind of like a weird.
Yvonne Thomas.
It's almost like a weird science too, because
I know Yvonne's daughter, Gwen. Been following her since she was showing at a little space in Williamsburg called Eyewash.
that mutually support each other and make each other look better. And then if you
Maria Perez Simeo.
and some of
It's untitled.
Okay, this one's on the right, this one's on the left, this looks terrible, but if this one's on the right, this one's on the left. But
It's another Yvonne Thomas.
and you have to be able to make them fit together somehow. So it is curating insofar as you're getting what you get.
Or Helen Frankenthaler. Kind of makes me think of a Sam Francis.
Put together, it's not a great show. So we're doing two with a collector or something, or even a dealer, and say,
And this is a Louise Fishman. I think Louise passed away a couple of months ago.
Sure, we'd love to give you X, but
My final inch.
Y, Z, and X also, which we might have considered or not. And then if we hadn't, sometimes we were a great idea.
More Grace Hardigan. She went through a whole period, I guess maybe the late 80s into the 90s, where she's doing a lot of this dripping, dropping, splattering paintings.
Which is good sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Done it as private dealers for 20 years.
Okay, so I mentioned Shirley Jaffe. So here's a selection of her Untitled Mixed Medias on paper. These are from 1958, before she kind of moved into her hard-edged, jazzy kind of Matisse and Stuart Davis style. More Helen Frankenthaler.
It was pretty fast. It was pretty long.
Joan Mitchell.
I beg your pardon? Unfortunately, we're not going to be permanently in this space. Templone's son, he's a gallery.
Another
His son apparently signed a lease.
Rita Ackerman,
After us, sometimes
called Mama Study.
You know, I mean, honestly,
Rita's good.
it has never been my ambition to have a gallery. I do this is fantastic. I love it.
It's fun to love it first 30 months.
Yeah.
Vivian Springford.
You did, yeah. Nice report. Thank you so much.
Oh gosh, this is interesting.
Please feel free to come back in a second.
This is a Buffy Johnson painting.
I absolutely
Missed. I was doing some research and I noticed that Buffy Johnson was out in California. Happened to meet Mark Rothko and Clifford Still. I think maybe she even introduced them to each other. And then when they got back to New York, she kind of brought them together with some of her crowd. This is Lynn Drexler. Well, that was a after closing time run-through of 9th Street and Beyond, 70 Years of Women in Abstraction, Part 1, The Gestural. You can like this, share, link it up to all your social media sites, and you can leave your thoughts, ideas, comments, criticisms, and reviews, and suggestions, or anything else you'd like to leave. If you want to tell me where you're watching this, that's always great. As long as you say, thank you, Kate.
The rain washes you clean, you know. Yeah.
Yay!
Thank you.
What's your name?
Jules Gold.